You're listening to the Para House Entertainment Network. Come join us as we take you deep into the fire to the paranormal realms of hauntings, UFOs, ETs, alien abductions, strange creatures, and the vastness of universal consciousness as we continue to seek what is not supposed to exist as we search for the truth that only comes from going into the fire. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Into the Fire tonight. How's everybody doing? It's a special night for us here. We've got our guest host with the mostest, Mr. Billy E.G.B. Sims, the epic beard guy. I do believe that Miss Tanya is going to be joining us here shortly. We've got a great show tonight with a excellent, exceptional guest. I think so highly of this guy. He has been through it, and we are going to take you, our listeners, deep into the fire as we go deep into the subjects of UFOs and alien abductions with author, ET experiencer, host of Devil's Den Radio, Mr. Terry Lovelace. And he's got some new books out. You know how I always like to market the books to start off with. And we're going to go back to his first book. And this is something, if you want to read a good story, not a story, a true story about alien abductions and the experiences that you have to go through to it, this is the book to grab first. Incident at Devil's Den, a true story by Terry Lovelace. And it is an excellent book. I've had Terry out on the show, on the radio shows before, and just enjoyed the heck out of him. He is, for the people who haven't been through or haven't heard alien abductions and heard about it, he's going to wake you up. He's quite a guy. He is just super. After writing this book, which was a bestseller, he had been wanting to write a sequel to it, or kind of like a second book. And that book is now out and available, so you can get it at Amazon and all those fine places. Unfortunately, I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to tell you right now, I will be getting it by tomorrow morning after the show's over. And that is Devil's Den, The Reckoning, and again by Terry Lovelace. And please, as you go back to the archives of this, you'll be able to see it if you have any problems with it. But they are excellent material by Terry, and he's quite the guy. I'll just give you a little bit of a highlight about Terry. Terry Lovelace is about 65 years old. He's a retired lawyer, former assistant attorney general, 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force. He was a medic and EMT there. He's been a speaker at the UFO conference, Contact in the Desert, Roswell, and many others. He's the guy who makes you think about going camping. In 1977, he took a first experience going camping with his friend Toby. They were in the military at the time, and they were based at I can't remember the name of the Air Force base. I have to ask him about that. But they went out on a camping trip, and they had an experience that has affected him ever since. He has had, because of this and having this experience, he has spent a long time dealing with it. and he has turned into quite the guy to helping others understand it through his books and also through other organizations that he helps abductees with. So, folks, Billy, you got anything to add tonight? Oh, I got to add something to it. By the way, everybody, tonight's coffee cup is brought to you by Frankie Lynn, a great listener. We appreciate it. And it says, bear with me for all those technical difficulties that we seem to have. And I want to thank you so much, Frankie Lynn. It's a pleasure. And it's great to be able to use your coffee cup tonight. So hallelujah. Billy, what's up with you tonight?
I am actually had a day of recovery, I guess. You know, we had a busy weekend.
We did have a busy weekend. We did have a busy weekend. And it was a great weekend, though. The Fearless Ones put on one outrageous event at the Octagon Hall. And in fact, I'm wearing my Fearless shirt tonight. I didn't plan on that, but it just seems to be that way. But yeah, it was an excellent event. Great job done by Jason, Doogie, and Jeremy. And we are just appreciative as all heck. And hey, thanks everybody who came out, everybody who participated in it. It was just great. Everybody was happy. The hall was active. We had a lot of great times. And we also, again, thanks everybody on the silent auctions. You did us right. And I thank you so very much. And again, thank you for the Fearless Ones. And I can't wait to have you back on the radio on Into the Far or at the hall. So let's get my good friend and buddy on here, the guy who makes me go, ooh, more than it. That's the first time I ever did a radio show with him. He made me go, wow. And I think he's going to make you do that tonight too. So let's bring in Terry Lovelace. Hey, Terry, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, Bear, I couldn't be better, man. Thanks for having me back. It's nice to be here.
Hey, man, it is always a pleasure to have you. I can't tell you how enjoyable it is to see you up here and the talk. And we bump into each other. We talk quite a lot and do some things together, and it's wonderful. You were one of the things that people don't understand, and I want to make this present before we get you started. You know, you were in the legal community and you were a civil servant and all that good stuff. Yes. And being an assistant state attorney, you couldn't, tell people about your story. No, and back in when you had your story, you couldn't do it either because of social conditioning and all that other stuff. And we may bring that up. But after you retired, is when, you came out and did it. And you suffered for 40 years of nightmares, terrors, everything from all this. And I just need the audience to understand that. And I know that you're going to shake up quite a lot of them tonight. And we're going to take a little questions from them later. But I'm going to let you roll with it. I know that there was the interesting thing about your case is that you did have these little sightings and you had other things happening. So if you can cover those kind of quick and then get into the big thing with the Devil's Den and your first camping trip. And then we got to talk about the book and everything else. So I'm going to let you roll for a while. All right, my friend?
I'm ready. I'm ready. I want to say hi to Billy.
All right, my friend. I'm going to give you the screen. All right.
All right. I'll take it.
All right.
Hi, welcome. My name is Terry Lovelace. If you haven't heard my story, I'm going to give you the kind of the capsule version tonight. The long version takes about 4 hours, so we'll trim it down a little bit. Right after high school, I joined the United States Air Force 1973. I was 6 years on active duty until 1979. I joined the Air Force not as a career, but I wanted a GI Bill. It was my ticket to undergrad. I wanted a college degree so I could apply to law school. So that was the object of the exercise, was to serve my time and get out. I was a medic, an EMT, a first responder, drove an ambulance with my good friend Toby. We worked together at the night shift in the emergency room for about 3 years together. And if anything happened on base, if there was a heart attack or a plane crash or whatever, you know, we were the guys in the ambulance. So, you know, we weren't fighter pilots, but, you know, we weren't tied to a file cabinet either. So, you know, it was a fun job. We enjoyed what we did. We helped people out, and we worked well together. And he came to me one night in April 1977, and he said, "Hey, man, I got an idea. Let's go camping." And I said, "You know, are you nuts?" I mean, I knew I'd grown up in St. Louis, Missouri. I knew I had never been camping. He was from Flint, Michigan. I had a pretty strong suspicion that he'd never been camping before in his life either. So I'm like, you know, where did this idea come from? And he actually had a good answer. He says, "Look, because I was an amateur photographer at the time. I had a little dark room set up in my house, and I had a nice Yashica camera just bought with some lenses. But we both were married. I was 22, Toby was 23, and we lived on the base in family housing. So the base was Whiteman Air Force Base, which is now home to the B-2 bombers. It's the one and only home to the B-2 bombers. Because I guess they can go anywhere they want. One's all they need. So we back then it was a SAC base. It had the nuclear armed B-52s and a squadron of Minuteman II ICBM missiles spread out all over the countryside. So yeah, to practice photography, we needed to get off the base and go somewhere. And I wanted to photograph wildlife. And he's like, "Man, this is the perfect spot. There's all kinds of wildlife there." He said there's even this elevated plateau that he'd heard about. He didn't exactly know where it was, but he thought, well, it's an elevated plateau, right? We'll be able to see it. Well, what we didn't know is the plateau is exactly the same height as the tops of the trees. So unless you're right on top of the thing, you can't see it. But I'll get it. We stumbled onto it. I'll get into that. So we, you know, we didn't know what we were doing, but, you know, it wasn't rocket science. We made a list of what we needed, and we bought a $10 Kmart tent, some blow-up air mattresses. We borrowed some hospital blankets, and you know, packed a cooler, and we were ready to go. We went down, and beforehand we made the agreement we were going to dodge the park ranger station and the campgrounds. We didn't want to stay in the campgrounds. We wanted to find this elevated spot that Toby had heard about from a friend. And so we got to the park. This is June of 1977. We drove in, and we kind of took a paved road till it turned to a dirt road, till it turned to a gravel road. And Toby's kind of leading the way because he had just great sense of direction, and I have zero. So I always drove, he always navigated. And he was kind of like, you know, make a left here, make a left here, make a right here. And in retrospect, it's kind of spooky in that he knew where to turn. A guy that read my book, who's from Dallas, where I live, was an Army cartographer, a map maker, and he took the aerial photographs from Google Earth and mapped the area from where we entered the campground to where this plateau is. And we would have had to make something like 20 turns correctly, any one of which would have taken us off in an odd direction, and we could have drove around for a month and not found the place. So my buddy was either really, really lucky, or it was just a really strange coincidence that he knew how to get us right to where we were going.
Kind of like a coincidence. I mean, it's more like fate. The way this story goes, and folks, you're going to hear it, and it may interrupt you, Terry, but
no.
You know, going through this experience and where you were and the things that happened that night, it was almost like a destiny, because this place was the perfect place to camp, and just an excellent place. So I'll let you continue, buddy.
Well, you raise a really good point, Bear, and that is that we got this vibe like it felt like we were there by appointment almost, and we were right on time. It's weird. So we came into a chain across the road, because we didn't know this until afterward, but the place where we stayed actually isn't even in Devil's Den State Park. It's on a piece of federal land owned by the Bureau of Land Management and leased to a private individual. And what's crazy is that this plateau that we stayed on is still there. Now, this thing should be covered with 40-year-old mature trees by now, but it's not, and it's clear cut. And if you look at it from a satellite image down below, or even if you look at it from the side, you can see it's not forested. I had a friend on Facebook who owns a landscaping company down in Alabama blow up the photograph and look at it. And he said that he could see like a farm tractor tire marks in the grass. And he said that it pulled a brush hog, whatever a brush hog is. Conjures up a weird mental image, but yeah, a brush hog that cuts the grass, keeps it about 6 inches high, and they do that to this day. So my question is, why would the federal government burn all that gas for 50 years to cut the top of this meadow that doesn't even have a paved road to it and is in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, Terry, I've got a picture of it. I'll bring it up and put it up there, and I'll let you talk over it.
Yeah.
People in Kentucky are laughing about the bush hog thing, because we use them all the time here. It's a mower that is pulled basically by a PTO off of a tractor, and it allows you to cut massive swatches of stuff, and it runs over about everything. It hogs the brush, let me tell you. So here, I'll put that picture up right now, okay?
Okay.
Because this is a strange place, and this is the current photo of it. Did it look the same way when you had it, when you were there? As you can see, folks, this is the plateau right here. I hope you can see my cursor going around it. But yeah, it's quite the place, and it's up on top of a hill, isn't it?
It is. It's this plateau. When you're up there, you're seeing the tops of the trees in the forest. And what's crazy is when we walked the thing, in my book, I had not seen these photographs yet. When we walked it, it seemed kind of horseshoe shaped. But really, if you look at it from above, it's almost a triangle.
It is. I'm going to fluck it up there one more time, and it does look kind of triangular shaped, almost odd. I guess the little white spot on this picture here is about where you camped that night.
Yes.
Excellent.
I think that's maybe a little bit. It should be a little bit closer to the edge. We were back a little further, closer to the tree line, but it's darn close.
Okay, I'll pull this out and I'll let you go back to it. I like having you on main screen and telling the story, so we'll let you get back to it, my friend.
Thanks. And I think seeing the visual really makes it
more. It lets people know this is a unique place. It is a different place, and how you actually found it, and you're going to continue on it anyways.
Yeah, you know what? But before I tell you about the camping trip, I want to tell you a little bit about Devil's Den, because I think that's worth mentioning. In the first book, I told the story of Rodney Letterman, 32-year-old young man from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, who drove down with his buddy, and they were going to walk the Butterfield Trail. And they call it the Butterfield Trail because the first intercontinental stagecoach line was called the Butterfield Stagecoach Line, and it cut right through Devil's Den. So that's the trail. What was the old Butterfield Stagecoach Line?
Yeah.
And these two guys were in August of 2017, when I was writing the book. I got a subscription to the local newspapers down there and kind of kept an eye on them. because I found I couldn't get information about deaths and missing persons through the Bureau of Parks in Little Rock. They don't, like David Paulides found out and made public. They don't share that information. So just in 2017, just in that 1 year that I was kind of like had an eye on things down there, 28-year-old young woman named Monica Murphy in early spring went to the park, turned up missing. They found her 8 days later. She fell off a 100-foot cliff, limestone cliff. They ruled her death a suicide eventually. And
wow.
In August, that's when Rodney Letterman and his friend from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, came down to walk the Butterfield Trail and kind of check out the park. So they're about a mile into the park, and Rodney had asthma, and he starts wheezing. And he tells his friend, he says, I left my inhaler back in the car. Would you mind? Would you run back and grab it for me? He says, yeah, no sweat, man. No worries. So his friend runs back, grabs the inhaler from the truck, runs back, is back in 30 minutes, and there's no Rodney Letterman. This is the city. There's people walking around, and it's a crowded place almost, but no Rodney Letterman. But his cell phone's laying on the ground. I don't know about you, but my cell phone's either in my pocket or in my hand. I wouldn't lay it down.
Yeah.
And this guy's got asthma. He's having an asthma attack, and the terrain off of the trail is rough. So he thinks, he yells for his friend. There's no answer. So he gets the park rangers involved, and they responded immediately. And they initiated a search right away. And they got the Russellville Police Department has the dogs, the tracking dogs.
Tracking dogs, hound dogs, if you will.
And I talked to a deputy sheriff from the department, and I promised to keep him anonymous. And he told me about the event. And they took the dogs out there to look for Rodney, and they could pick up his scent from the truck all the way through the trail till they got to the phone. And the dogs got a scent off the phone, but then sat down. And I said, well, I don't know nothing about dogs. What does that mean?
Oh.
That's where the trail ends.
That's it. I mean, this as far as it goes. That's
the
set.
Where did he go? And the guy just said, up. So, so he was missing. And in my book, when I wrote Incident at Devil's Den, I said, if I get an update on the fate of Rodney Letterman, I'll let you know. So that's part of the reason I wrote the second book. In March of 2019, there was a young couple walking the Butterfield Trail. And the young lady says to her friend, is that an albino turtle on that log over there? And he's like, what? And they go over to check it out. And sure enough, there's something strange, kind of football shaped, sitting on top of this log. And it's snow white. And it's obviously been placed there because this log sits right parallel with the trail, big log, and it's sat right in the middle. And he walks over and picks it up, and it's a human. It's the top of Rodney Letterman's skull. Verified.
Oh my gosh!
Verified by the Bartlesville, Oklahoma medical examiner by DNA as being his skull, and it had been bleached by sunlight. But the thing wasn't there, a day earlier.
Right. It was there.
It was a staged crime.
Staged deal.
Yeah. So,
any other parts of his body found other than that?
No. No clothing, no nothing.
Wow.
Found. So.
That brings us to David Paulides, missing 411 in national parks and federal parks. And it puts a weird thing on going out into that stuff. And I'm not going to be going out and walking to see where your place, where this event happened anytime soon. It's crazy how these areas form this way. and you see these stuff, and you see other sightings. And Arkansas is known for UFO sightings.
Yes.
There's quite a lot of UFO sightings and a lot of abductions and other famous abductees. When you know our good friend Eric Mitchell, he does. He's from Arkansas, and I don't know how close it is to Devil's Den, but you know, there's been so many stories, and then the missing people, and it's just a strange part. And I'm sure that if his skull was sliced open, and was it perfect?
Jagged.
Jagged.
Like it had been broken. But it was broken symmetrically. You know what I mean? It was broken.
Hard to do. Yeah, not right at all. That is an interesting piece. Now, thank you. I'll have more nightmares than I normally do now.
you know, David Paulides, in that Missing 411 series of books, his fourth book is called "The Devil is in the Details." Missing 411, The Devil is in the Details, and Devil's Den is in there.
Is it? Oh, God.
Yeah, it's in there. It's in there. Yeah.
Oh.
It talks about the same case I talk about in the beginning of Incident at Devil's Den, the Catherine Van Alst disappearance, where the little girl's missing for 7 days.
Right.
And the last day they found her on top of a 700-foot cliff miles away from the campsite. She was dressed in a swimming suit and wearing shower thongs.
Yeah.
And perfectly well hydrated, hadn't lost an ounce of weight. Her mother said her hair smelled clean from the shower she'd had the night before. And they asked her, "Well, where did you go, hon?" "I don't remember." Boy, I'd love to have found her, and I'd love to have interviewed her.
Yeah, that would be oh golly.
And, you know, I didn't know any of this stuff, or I would never have gone down there, to be honest with you. But
if only you would have known beforehand, right?
Nobody told me.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy stuff.
So here's what we did next. We got to the top of this plateau, and we had a good time. We did all the fun stuff you do when you go camping. And we set up a little campsite and, enjoyed the day. And everything was great. As a matter of fact, we had a tent set up in back of us, and we had 2 air mattresses with a little fire between us. And we're just laying there talking, having a good time, shooting a breeze, And there came we're laughing and cutting up, and then there's a lull in our conversation. And this sounds cliche. It really does. And I mean, almost embarrassed to tell you because everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I've heard that before." Well, you know what? It's true. And that is that the crickets, the tree frogs, all the stuff that makes noise in the forest, that all went quiet. And, it wasn't that it was only quiet. It was still, we'd had a little bit of a breeze beforehand because it was June. It was kind of warm.
Yeah.
And the breeze stopped. And it sounded like you were in a sound booth or something. And it alerted me. It did. I mean, and I asked my friend, like he's going to know.
What's going on?
Yeah, did it get awful quiet out here or what?
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to hear that several times.
I remember that. You've experienced that, haven't you?
I have experienced it. And we call it now what I call deadwoods. Everything just ceases. Crickets, birds, animals, wind, anything. It just goes dead silence. And it's like you're in the cone of silence almost. It's like you went death. There is, all you're hearing is just the whole atmosphere of nothingness.
Not only did it go quiet, but we lost the breeze, but there was a tree in back of our tent. And I could see, from the fire now is burning just straight up because there's no breeze. and it's lighting up, and I'm looking at this tree, and I'm thinking, you know, one of those leaves should move. Even if it's still, one of those things should move like a millimeter or something.
Right.
And it didn't. And it almost looked to me, it had an artificial feel to it.
Right.
Wow.
You know, that's what you can say. Where you're sitting and where you're looking around and everything else, it almost looks like time stood still and it's a snapshot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and it's a very weird feeling. It's just it's spooky. In fact, I mean, it's you know, at that time, for me now, I know that we need to move because something odd's going to happen, or there's something very bad in this area because everything is shut up. So.
Yeah. Had I been there by myself, I'd have been gone. You know.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But I didn't. You know, and my friend kind of blew it off, so I didn't. But I was kind of nervous about it. And a few minutes later, he's fixated looking over his left shoulder at something on what would have been the western horizon, where we were placed. And we were in a remote area. I mean, there was nothing around. It's built up a little bit now. But back in '77, we were miles from anything. And he asked me, he said, "Hey, Terry, were those lights there before?" And I'm like, "What lights? What are you talking about, man?" And I couldn't see them because where I was sitting, his torso was in the way. So I stand up and take a step back. And on the western horizon, there was this cluster of 3 little stars sitting in a tight triangle. And they were too far above the horizon to have been lights from a train or a parking lot or something.
Right.
So we thought maybe it's an airplane, and it's just got its heading is right straight toward us. And it's the illusion that it's standing still, and we'll see it move as soon as it deviates a degree or two one way or the other. Mm-hmm. And we're watching, and it didn't. And then it rotated. It rotated like it was on an axis and did about a 120-degree turn. And what it did was it aligned the bottom of the triangle parallel with the horizon. So the apex of the triangle was pointed up. You know, we should have been more excited about this. We should have been excited or fearful, entertained, something. But we weren't, you know, our emotions, our reactions were just muted. And this thing then started to go up into the air. And it maintained that triangular formation, and it went straight up, and we could see as it's moving, as it passed, because there were 1 trillion stars out that night, as it would pass through a field of stars, the stars would blink out and then blink back on after it had passed.
Wow.
And also the area inside the triangle, even with the points of light lit up, the area inside the triangle was black, and the sky, because of the starlight, was almost a dark blue. So we could see it was one solid object and not 3 moving in unison.
Well, you know, Terry, the guy you're with, Toby, yeah, you were in the military to get anything else, but he had an interest in astronomy and other things. And what's he saying while he's looking at this? Because he's probably, you know, he knows all the stars. He knows all that stuff, correct?
You're right. You're right. And
when he sees these 3 lights and they're hanging around, and all of a sudden they're moving, and the sky is looking totally different, and it's blacking out stars as it's moving through the area. And I'm assuming it's getting bigger as it's coming closer, is it?
It did. And it's a good point about Toby, because he was a math genius. He was. And he wanted to study physics, get an undergrad degree in physics, then go on and study cosmology or astronomy at the graduate level, and make that his occupation. And but man, he knew the sky. I mean, he could time when satellites were going to come over. He was good. He knew the sky. And that was his reward for going down there. I went down there to take photographs of wildlife. He went down there to watch the night sky. We watched the night sky, right? And this thing, you know, what it did was it moved up, and I'm guessing maybe 10. I got no point of reference, but I'm guessing maybe 10,000 feet in the sky. and it turned over and went level, and then turned down with the point in our direction, and started like a glide plane and just started a descent. And it was very, very obvious that this thing was headed in our direction. And
here you are sitting looking at it.
Well, you know what? I had this crazy feeling of almost sedation come over me.
Really?
Absolutely. It was, I was in a weird place. I felt calm. All that anxiety that I felt about the quietness earlier, that's all gone. I have no fear whatsoever. I'm in this just relaxed state. And I'm watching this thing, and you know, the best way I can describe it is I was more of an observer than a participant in the events. I felt like I was almost disassociated from it in some way.
Yeah.
It's weird, I mean, but that's where it was. And we saw this thing as it came in, and my friend's in the same state of mind because there's no words. I think the only thing he said was, "Boy, they're really moving now," or something. Comment like that when we first started moving, and that was it. That was the conversation we had.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
It glided in at about 5,000 feet over the meadow where we were, and then at the horizon level. And then as it got closer to us, it descended about another 2,000 feet. And I'd estimate that it stopped at about 3,000 feet over our heads. Now we were a little bit offset, so we weren't directly underneath it, thankfully. But it stopped about 3,000 feet, and it filled that entire area. It was a city block long on each leg of the triangle. It was enormous. And we're watching this thing, and it shined some lights down. It shined a beam of light down that hit the campfire for about 60 seconds. And
you almost described it a little. I remember our last conversation, almost like lasers moving around, or like it was trying to scan the area, kind of like doing a scanning.
Yes, absolutely. Well, if there were two, the initial light that came down had this white quality to it, like a searchlight cuts through fog. You see a white column of light. Well, there was no fog, of course, but this was a white column of light, probably the diameter of a softball. And that landed right in the middle of a campfire, and it was like they hit a switch or something. And it just turned on. Wow. And then as soon as that turned off, then that laser started, and it just danced all over the campsite. It struck me in the chest a couple times. I never felt a thing. And that lasted.
Really? Yeah.
You know what did it? It hit everything that wasn't natural. It hit the campfire, my buddy's backpack, his Coleman cooler, the tent, the mattresses, my car. So it seemed like it was feeling out those things that were not natural to that location. Yeah.
That's an interesting point, isn't it?
It is. And that validates the point that it was scanning us.
Yes, it does. It does. It knew what was supposed to be there, and it knew something wasn't there.
Well, then what happened next is, I said that we were semi-sedated, and as soon as that red light turned off, I got sleepy. I mean, have you ever been, just so tired, so sleepy, you just want to lay your head down, and as soon as you put your head down, you're going to be out like a light. It's like, oh man. And that came over us, and that was very unnatural because we were, with you guys that worked the night shift for 3 years. This was 10 o'clock at night. I mean,
we shouldn't have been going out at that time.
Yeah. We were 22 and 23 years old. I mean, this was not time to take a nap.
Well, it's through the paranormal side of it. And, all of this is all intertwined. In my book, Billy believes the same thing. We're all in the same boat. And, when we deal with paranormal a lot, or you have heavy activity, or you're doing a cleansing and you're really putting your energy out there and you're trying to do something, or you're dealing with these spirits, same thing with abductees, everything else. I've heard it from so many people. It wears you out. It just drains you to the point where you're like going, we call it a paranormal hangover. That's how it feels. You just got to go lay down. You got to relax. You got to lay down, and it happens to a lot of us. So,
we
understand.
That's a really interesting point, because I'll tell you, I put an email address in the back of Incident at Devil's Den, and I said, look, I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but hey, you know what? If you've had an experience and you want to share it with somebody, I'd love to hear it. And I promise I'll respond.
Yeah.
I got 15. Well, I check. I have every morning. I make a pot of coffee and I return emails. I've got almost 1,600 now emails from people.
Wow.
Telling me their stories. And that was part of the second book. Is I took 400 of these stories of the very best of the best. And I bet this rings a bell with you. These stories that are really, and I don't judge the validity of anyone's story really, but the ones that I think are really good and very credible, they all start off the same. They start off with, now, please don't think I'm crazy, or you're going to think I promise we weren't drinking, or, we hadn't smoked any weed at all, I promise. But they sincerely make this apologetic disclaimer. And then they tell me the most unbelievable stories.
Yeah, and it's just like what we deal with on our investigations, whether it be UFOs, ghosts. We deal with all of them, Bigfoot things, and they all say the same thing. It's all wrapped all around in one thing. The abductees all say the same. Don't think I'm crazy. Don't think this. Don't think that. And back in our day, you and I have kind of like a mirror history. I mean, yours happened in '63. The first time we had an event, mine happened in '64, and it's gone on throughout our whole lifetime, and it just carries on from that. And that's why we do what we're doing now, But back then it was taboo. And it's like we mentioned earlier at the beginning of the show, it's social conditioning. It's where mom or dad said, we're never going to talk about that. And you don't talk about it because people are going to look at us funny, and this is the way that these people are. These people are going to say, don't go over to the Gaunts' place. They're nuts, You know
what? I remember my dad's words. My dad came home and, he came into my room and he said, now what's all this nonsense about flying saucers? And I said, well, actually, it's singular. There was only one. That didn't do anything. That annoyed him. And and he said, look, he says, you can't go telling people you saw a flying saucer. They'll think there's something wrong with you. They'll think there's something wrong with us.
Yeah.
That 1960s, perfect family, with the
right. Yeah, we wouldn't have had anybody to play with if.
But when we grow up, there's certain professions, like my friend Bruce Solheim is an academic. He's a history professor. So people in academia, people in law enforcement, people in air traffic control, people in just all walks of life,
right,
are afraid of the stigma that's attached to coming out and saying, I saw something really crazy.
Yeah. And it's the same thing with doctors, professional people, lawyers, all of that. It's very sensitive, and golly, the stories that we hear, and they are amazing. And we always know when you got a good one because they all kind of start off the same way. The people are all, and you just know it. I mean, there's certain pointers that we have, or how do I want to say, clues that have been left that we just know right off the bat.
There's a thread of commonality that runs through all of
it.
And you know what? I got letters from people who had NDE experiences and ghost experiences. Mm-hmm. Actually, I started my third book. I'm about 30,000 words into it. I think I'll have it done by May. But the whole point of the exercise is there's a thread of commonality that runs through all this stuff. I don't care if you're talking about Bigfoot or ghost or UFOs or aliens, you name it. There is some kind of thread of commonality that runs through it that goes somewhere to a source or somewhere. but I think that needs to be talked about. And I'm going to.
Oh, it does. It definitely does. And, you know, when we first started saying it, we call it high strangeness. That's what we've,
good term. Yes.
You know, and it is associated with all of it. You know, it's kind of like going an abductee will start to see shadow figures, orbs, have odd things like this happening in their life, weird dreams. Same thing with people, you know, so it's associated with ghosts. And they'll say, I got a ghost in my house. They may not even know they've been abducted. They could have seen a UFO. It could have been anything like that. Same thing with Bigfoot. Same thing with all the stuff. And it opens some kind of veil that kind of removes a little bit, and it takes you up a notch where you are now open to see and feel and witness all this other stuff. I don't know. Kind of.
Yeah, I think that sums it up, man. I think that says it very well. You know, we're changed people. When you go through,
just look at me.
Oh yeah, you know, it is. I mean, and I mean, I'm not talking about just seeing a silver disc dart across the sky. I'm talking about something with a little more intimacy, you know?
Right. Yeah, a little bit more meat on the on the bone.
You're going to walk away at a different person. You know, I tend to measure my life pre-1977 and post-1977 because when we went down there, I think we were just a couple of really teenagers at heart. And we came back. We felt like old men.
Yeah, changed.
We were changed. We were. Yeah. And you know, it opened. You used the word that it opened a doorway or lifted a veil or something. Mm-hmm. You know, that changed my life in other ways too. In that I found myself being really intuitive about things, and then I started seeing UFOs in the sky, and then, you know, my wife and I will be married 47 years next month. Been together 47, 45. I know it's close. The
anniversary is coming up.
So we you know, our TV will go on at 2 a.m. in the morning. You know, and we just get up and turn it off and say out loud, "Knock it off." You know.
Yeah. Well, that's the story of Billy's life, my life, the whole 9 yards, because it's like the gift that keeps on giving. And we always find that something happened to us. We become empathic. We telekinesis, you move things. It's all different of whatever happens to you, and your whole life does change. We've talked about that several times about how you just know everything's a lie. Everything that you've ever known has been changed. And now you are out here and you know things that people aren't even talking about. You know that the aliens are real because you've been there. You know it, you know. And then so all the things that happen. And then on top of that, throw in, you know, I call it, since I was a kid, I call it, well, everybody that I know always said that if you want to see something strange, hang out with Bear.
Oh my God!
You know, same thing as you, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so I always call it, I got the paranormal shit magnet in my pocket.
Yeah. That rings a bell.
Yeah, it does. It's amazing on how it goes and where it goes from there. I gotta have you tell, you know, we'll get back to the story because it's such a great story, because they've just got to hear the stuff where that becomes like wow to me, because already it's to that point, Terry. You know, you've seen an object, you get this object, now you're being hit by beams, you're being things, and now all of a sudden it's 10 o'clock at night and you guys are going to go to bed.
We're going to go to bed with an object hanging over our heads. Yeah. And that's what And then as soon as my head hit that pillow, that inflatable plastic pillow, I was out. I mean, I was gone. I didn't take off my boots, which will come into play later. I didn't take off my boots. I didn't take off my shirt. Nothing. I fell down and I was unconscious. I wouldn't call it sleep. And I had no dreams. It was more akin to being anesthetized, really, because it went like that. And then I woke up. I didn't know it, but about 6 hours had passed, and there were these lights flashing through the canvas of the tent. And they were white, yellow, orangish, flashing at odd intervals and flashing really, really bright. I mean, like an old school. Remember those flash bulbs that had all the filaments in them?
Yeah.
They'd go off and you'd blink, you see a blue dot in front of your face for an hour.
Right, exactly.
That's how the intensity of these lights were. And I wake up and I'm not sure where I'm at. I'm like, oh yeah, Toby and I are camping. That's right. And I see these lights and I'm like, I'm kind of out of it. And I'm thinking, I bet these are like the overhead flashing lights of a park ranger's truck is what I was thinking.
Yeah. You're like going over.
Kind of make sense of something, And then I sit up and I look down at my feet and my boots have been unlaced almost all the way down. And, the military teaches you to take care of your feet. And, I would have gone to sleep maybe with my boots off, not likely, or I would have gone to sleep with them laced up, but I wouldn't have gone to sleep with them like that. I mean, if you had to run, you couldn't.
You couldn't have. You couldn't have done anything.
So, I mean, I was annoyed by it when I saw that. So I took off my boots and my socks were on sideways. I didn't know it, but we'd been undressed and somebody had redressed us. That was the deal. That's why my socks were on sideways. And because I would never do that. So I put them on properly, laced up my boots, and I turned my attention to my pal over here to my left, and he's peeking out this flap of the tent, and he's looking out over the meadow, and he's fixated looking at something. And in one of these flashes, because it's dark in there until the lights on this triangle flash, and then we can see for a second. And in one of these flashes of light, I could see that he was African American, so his skin is black, and the tears, the saline in the tears would fluoresce against that white light, and I could see this white streak down the side of his face. Now that got me worried because I couldn't imagine what would make this guy cry.
Right.
That pretty much wigged me out, and I asked him. I said, Toby, because I'm thinking that maybe he's upset about park rangers being here or something, but that's not an appropriate response. And I'm like, Toby, what is it? What's out there? Is it park rangers? And he said, be quiet. They're still out there. And I'm like, who's still out there? Now I'm getting annoyed, right? Now I'm getting annoyed. So I get to my knees and I pull back my flap of the tent about 2 inches and I look out. And there were two things: that this craft, this triangular shaped craft that had been 3,000 feet over our heads when we went to bed, has now descended, and it is right over the floor of the meadow. It's 30 feet off the ground.
That's a wow moment.
Wow, it's right. Because it was huge. Thank God we weren't underneath it. We were just offset by maybe 10 feet.
Wow.
And we could see one side. It was a triangle. We could only see one side of it the way it was positioned, but we could see the lights on either side. And these lights were flashing in unison at odd intervals. And the thing was huge. It was more like a medical building. I say a Walmart, but it had depth to it. It was about 5 stories deep. And, if you, 5 stories deep. If you read Dave Marler's book on triangles, he wrote the book literally on triangles. And Dave Marler describes an event that happened in Hudson Valley in the same year, 1977, in August, I believe. A woman in Hudson Valley saw and reported identical to what we saw, absolutely to a T, same thing that we saw. And if anybody wants to see a picture of that, they can go to terrylovelace.com. And I got a picture that I drew contemporaneous with the event. I drew it, I think, in July, the following month, just weeks after the event. I drew it. When I got home, I sketched it onto a piece of like loose leaf binder paper, and then I transferred it over to a nice piece of art paper. That's what the thing looked like. And the second thing that I saw were what I took to be children, about 12 to 15 of these little kids walking around the meadow. Now, I could see them in shadows, and when the lights would flash, then I could get a millisecond of a view of them. And they were a fair distance away, too. But they looked like children. And I'm like, Toby, man, what are these kids doing out here in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere? It doesn't make any sense. And he said, Terry, man, those ain't no little kids. Look at them. They're not human beings. And then that's when the fear ramped up. That's when I started to get scared. And I looked, and he was right, because they weren't human beings at all. They had the large heads. They had spindly bodies. And they walked with a really weird gait. They walked like their knees were hinged to go backward with every step. So it kind of looked like they drug their foot behind them when they moved forward. Very distinctive gait. And
we've heard that so many times. And
you know, if somebody sent me a website, not a website, pardon me, a video from YouTube called Skinny Bob. It supposedly surfaced from one of the Eastern European countries. It got posted one time, and there was never any other post by that name. And it was supposedly a captured extraterrestrial.
Right.
This thing looks like what I saw. Very much like what I saw. So if you look up Skinny Bob, that's him. That's them. And
it's amazing. And we've had, through all the cases that we get a chance to, it's amazing how many people describe that figure and how it has different gait, very large head, extremely, like, what the heck's holding the head on its neck, on its torso. The torso is very spindly. The legs are very spindly, but they seem to be kind of like, what was the name of that movie? I don't know if I can't remember the movie. Maybe one of the people in the chat room will be able to tell me, but it was a movie that had all of a sudden normal person standing up and they go in there, they take off running and they just move so weird. And it's because they're hinged backwards. Their knees are going backwards instead of forward.
I hadn't told a soul that until I wrote this book. And then I've had so many people tell me the same thing, that they witnessed the same thing, that they walk with this distinctive gait. So. Yeah,
it is amazing. Well, you know what? The part that you're watching, and you had like a front row seat, unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, but something else bizarre happens. You actually get to see them kind of disappear in odd ways.
Yes, I did. While we're watching them, what's happening is we're terrified that we're going to cough or sneeze or do something and draw their attention. They're going to come over. And we had no way of knowing, they were long done with us. They were finished.
They've already done all the probing they needed.
Yeah, we've been thoroughly probed, I'm sure. Yeah. We're watching this thing, and then all of a sudden there came another light from the center of this thing underneath, and it was a column of white light. It was visible light that you could see, like a searchlight cuts through fog. It was visible. It's 30 feet in diameter, because I think this thing was about 30 feet off the ground, and this column of light was as wide as the thing was off the floor of the meadow.
Right.
And as soon as that clicked on, these little guys, they didn't rush, they didn't run, but they all turned their attention toward it in one motion, which was kind of spooky in itself. Yeah,
that would be
mentality, But they all turned and looked toward the light, and then they started to amble over toward it. And they were, like I said, they were in twos and threes. I wish I'd counted them, somewhere between 12 and 15 of them. And they would step into this light, and like the first two stepped in, and over the course of about 20 seconds, they just pixelated out and were gone. Very much like, and I've never been a science fiction fan, but I remember watching Star Trek as a kid, and they had that the transporter thingy, like a two-cow thing stand on.
Right, exactly. Beam me up.
Beam me up, yeah. And that's what this looked like. It very, very much looked like that. They pixelated out and were gone. And when the last two little guys were gone, this thing took off. And it didn't take off like a rocket ship. It just lifted off like a hot air balloon and went straight up.
Wow.
And we watched it until it was gone. And, you know, I voted that we wait till morning to leave the tent. I didn't want to go outside. Because it was,
I don't blame you.
60-foot run to the car, right?
Right.
I mean, but my friend's like, we need to get out of here. And I was concerned. I said, you know, look, my 1966 Impala, are you going to be able to get us out of here without me breaking an axle? And he's like, I got this, man. You know, let's just get out of here. But it took a lot of encouragement from him to get me to leave that tent. Because all I had over my head was a piece of canvas, but I felt like it gave me cover. You know, I was
sure. It was like hiding you and that was your security blanket almost. Like
that's what I felt. Yeah, and that run in the car, I'd be vulnerable. I didn't want to be vulnerable. You know, to this day, I won't cut across an open field. I'll walk 1.5 miles around, but I won't cut across an open space because I feel that same vulnerability.
Right. Yeah, because you're out there and, you know, it's amazing what has happened in open fields. And there's areas that I have been on fields and I drive and then I'll go a certain way and I stay close to the edges. But when I get in the middle of it, it gets quite freaky. And there's areas where I'll say, I'm not driving through there because I've seen something there. And I don't want to ever see that again. So, you know, because it's hard for your mind to wrap around. I don't know if some of the experiences that we've had through our lives and everything else, your mind can digest some of them and you can go through it. But other ones, you just can't get your mind wrapped around it. It just seems that question is never answered. And those are the things that drive you insane. Well, at least me personally.
Well, don't you think that's part of the change that happens in us when we have that experience? And I know you and I both had. I had experiences when I was 8, when I was 11. I know you had experiences as a child too. Yeah. But we're changed. I mean, I've turned down some country roads before. It's no.
Yeah, you know, automatically.
Yeah, this ain't the way.
And what's really weird is when I'm driving on the highway, and for some reason or another, I know the way I got to go. Everything else, and I'm driving down the highway, and all of a sudden, I just missed that turn, and it's just like I was just dead, and it's taking me this way, and I just go, oh, I'm supposed to go this way and turn this way and go this way and get to where it is.
I get
Whatever, it's just automatic. It happens.
I get it.
When Eric was living with me here not too long ago, he would drive with me, and he would go, "Does this happen all the time, Bear?" And I'm like going, what are you talking about, Eric? And he's always looking out the back window. You know, he's turning around watching stuff, and I'm going, what? And he says, the lights go out when you drive underneath them. And we go to a Mexican restaurant. Everybody's sitting outside smoking a cigarette. I go to the door. I come outside, and the light in the parking lot goes out. I open the door, go back in. The light in the parking lot goes back on.
I've experienced that on residential streets.
Yes, it's weird. It's very, very strange. It's crazy.
Very strange. It is very strange.
Yeah, it's crazy. But you know, you come out of it, you're sore, you're abused, and then you have to pick up life where it started again. One of the interesting things that I think didn't both of you you didn't notice it right away, but your watches were stopped and then just never worked again, correct?
Never worked again. We both had wind up mechanical watches for the standard of the day. And we both had good watches because, you know, a good watch is integral to the job of being an EMT. You need one. And
Right.
both of our watches stopped at 240. I mean, we kept our watches kind of synchronized.
Of course, military and
a run. Yeah, we're in an ambulance run. We got to have accurate time. And mine was stopped at 240. His was stopped at 241. Those watches never worked again. So,
wow, that is.
Matter of fact, and I don't tell the story of this in the book, but my watch was actually a newer Elgin that my wife had bought me about 8 months previous. And it was still under manufacturer's warranty. So she sent it back to the Elgin Watch Company in Chicago, Illinois. And 4 months later, we get a letter back, and they returned the watch. And they said, "We're very sorry, but you voided the conditions of your warranty." And it explained that the watch had been exposed to a highly magnetic field, like a piece of industrial machinery or something.
Yeah.
Well, boy, I wish I'd saved that watch. I wish I'd saved the letter.
If you say the letter or the watch, but even knowing about it, Terry, it's quite interesting because what do we know about UFOs, magnetic fields, EMF?
Yeah.
You know, and what EMF can do, and it does it to the whole paranormal. Everything in the paranormal is associated with EMF. Yeah. You know, and even the Earth puts out its own electrical EMF field, and heavier in certain areas where there's ley lines. And if you start putting all these, as Pilatus did, I'll go back to him for a second, you start putting all these incidents together and all of the UFO type abductions. And if we ever put a map together on this kind of stuff and mapped it all out, I bet you're going to find that it's all really into an area where there is extreme high magnetic fields there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Hey, you know, it's interesting to talk about magnetism. Do you know Steve Colburn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've had him on the show before, and he's doing some interesting stuff. And he worked with for the people who don't know who Steve Colburn is, Steve worked with Dr. Lear. And he was, I think he was patient number 14. He had something taken out of him, and he's worked in the field. Now he's into nano, and he's working with another person out in bizarre paranormal things that I need to talk to you about, because I think you might like to talk to this and do both of them. Have you talked to them lately?
No, you know, I was just going to say I ran into him at UFOCon in San Francisco.
Yeah.
February 12th last year. It was the last in-person conference I went to.
Yeah.
Because everything else canceled.
Right. That was it.
And I had never met him before. And he had a booth set up, and he did scans for implants. And I asked him, I said, you know, can I get a scan? And you know Lorian Fenton, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Everybody. Lorian knows everybody. So, you know, Lorian, we had just finished for the day, and Lorian said, come on, we got to go eat. I said, hang on, Steve, I'm kind of in a hurry. Can you check me out for stuff in me? And I don't think he knew me. I know he didn't listen to my talk. So if your audience may not know, I have implants in my leg that were discovered in 2012 on a routine X-ray.
That was one of the things that it's on my list to ask you about later.
Yes. You know, if you go to terrylovelace.com, those X-rays are posted there. You can see them.
Excellent. I'm gonna
they were in my right leg. They're still there. I still have implants there, above and below. And he ran a couple things, some kind of instruments over my body, and so I don't see anything new in you. And then he runs this instrument over, and he goes right to the calf of my right leg, where there's that floret pattern of bones. And it says, something here is highly magnetized. And I said, well, it's just bone down there. And he says, oh, they can magnetize a piece of wood if they want.
Isn't that amazing?
So, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah.
But, you know, that was the catalyst. I had no intention of ever telling anybody about this, writing a book or doing anything. But, you know, seeing those x-rays was validation for me that these things had put their hands on me.
Well, you found out right after, what year was that? 2010, 2012, 2013, somewhere like that?
Yeah.
And that was right after you retired. And
yeah, I left the state of Vermont in January of 2012. And then in October of 2012, I had the pain that I had in my knee had nothing to do with the implants. The pain in my knee was from what's called a Baker's cyst, which is just a benign cyst you get underneath your kneecap that, you know, you catch it like you catch a cold, and it's painful for a couple of weeks and it goes away. It's never cancerous. It's always benign. That was the cause of my pain. That's what got me to get the x-ray. And the x-ray just happened to pick up these other two items.
Yeah. What did the x-ray technician say to you, or what did the doctor say about it?
The x-ray technician was baffled. She's like, you know, did you have a shrapnel wound? I said, shrapnel? I never left Missouri. I mean, you know, I don't have any shrapnel wounds. She said, well, were you ever in an accident where you injured your right leg that could account for a piece of metal in your leg? I thought surely that had to be a mistake. I said, no. You know, skinned knee as a kid maybe, but that's it. And she said, well, there's a couple anomalies on your x-rays. I'm going to ask the radiologist to come down and take a look at them. So this guy comes down. He's obviously annoyed that he had to come down and look at him because, you know, standard procedure is they take your x-ray, and unless it's a big emergency, they read it kind of in the ER, and then they throw it in a stack, and then a radiologist will sit down a week later and type up a report for it.
Right.
So if they call the radiologist down, it's because it's something unusual. And he walks in, he's obviously annoyed, and he goes over and he looks at my x-rays, and I can't see them at this point. And he walks over to me and said, you've been in some kind of accident. You may not remember it, but he said, the proof is you have to have a scar right here. And he pokes me in the leg. And I said, doctor, I don't have a scar right there. And he says, well, you have to, because you've got this foreign object in your leg. And he says, you can't violate the integrity of the skin and place an object this size, that deep into fascia and tissue, and there not be a corresponding scar. It has to be that way. He says, you probably just don't remember. And I'll tell you what did unnerve me was he showed me the x-ray. I said, can I see it, please? And he popped it up on the x-ray view box. And, you know, I was a runner for 40 years.
Right.
And beginning in 1979, when I started running, every time I would hit the 2-mile mark in my run, every single time without fail. I mean, you know, give or take 50 yards, this spot on my right knee would go completely numb. I mean, I could take a pin and delineate the edges of it. And the size was the size of a $50, perfectly round. And after I finished my run, it'd fade away in about 30 minutes. Because I know I could make it back to the office in 15, and I used to like freak out my secretary. I'd take a Post-it and staple it on my leg. And,
wow. Yeah, that freaked her out.
What wigged me out was I immediately recognized that this thing in my leg that has the square structure about the size of a fingernail with the 2 wires attached, that is directly underneath that spot on my leg that would go numb.
Oh, wow.
And I made that connection. And like I said, it was validation for me that these things had put their hands on me. And,
exactly. It had, I mean, you know, right then and there. What did, back in 2020 in February at the UFO Con, and you got to see Steve Colburn. Has he talked to you ever? Have you guys talked since?
No, we've not talked since. Matter of fact, I was going to have to get a hold of him. A guy from the Travel Channel was going to have me on a show, and I told him about that experience, and he said, "Well, let's get Steve Colburn in." And I said, "Okay." And then, you know, this COVID thing.
It's tossing everything around.
Yeah, you know, I mean, all this stuff that I had planned for the year was gone.
Right.
So I had 6 conferences canceled. But you know what I did do was I decided that had an economic impact on my life, and I applied for emergency relief, and we got
there you go.
money, you know.
Why didn't I think of that?
I called up all my friends. Hey, here's the website.
Yeah.
I should have called you. I didn't think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. We need to talk about the other book. I want to have the chance for the chat room to talk to you. I know you like to do Q&A.
I do. I appreciate Q&A. I appreciate
it. Billy, you've been watching the chat room. You got anybody that wants to ask any questions?
Yeah, I saw one earlier. I believe it was Sherry.
You know what? I could have told you that right off the bat. There's definitely a question out there for Sherry.
I believe, Sherry. If I'm mistaken, I'm sorry. But they wanted to know, have you had any experiences with Men in Black?
Oh, my God, yes. What a great question, because I have. Not until I published this book. When I published Incident at Devil's Den, that opened the door for the paranormal. We've already discussed that. But it also opened the door for a lot of strange people to call me. In April, I published the book in March 10th of 2018. And about 30 days later, I get a call one day, and I pick up my phone, and I see that it says Los Angeles. And, I answered, and I said, hello, this is Terry. And it said, well, hi, Terry, this is Tom DeLong. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have a clue who he was.
Yeah.
And I said, well, hi, Tom, how are you? And he says, hey, I'm good. I'm here with Lou Elizondo and Steve Justice, and I want to talk to you about your knee. I'm like, okay. So long story, the guys from TTSA were very kind to me. And there was a medical doctor that came down and looked at my knee. I won't mention his name. He asked me not to, and he was very kind. And then Lou Elizondo came down because about Men in Black, I had, and again, cliche time, I had helicopters. I had helicopters buzzing my house like nobody's business. And
we don't even.
I took pictures of them because I thought, first thing I did was I went and I looked up the law,
Right.
I'm going to look up the FAA regs, right? So kind of Regulation 45 says, if you're a helicopter and you're licensed to fly in the United States, you must display the alphabetical symbol N, like Nancy, followed by a numerical stream of numbers that identify that particular vehicle. And I'm taking pictures of these helicopters, and there's no numbers on them anywhere. Well, then I read down further at the bottom, and it says exemptions. Military agencies and certain federal agencies are exempt from having to. So hence the unmarked or the black helicopters. And luckily, I got a friend, a good friend, who is a former helicopter pilot, not a history professor, but he. I have 168 photographs of helicopters that I took over about an 8-month period. And Lou Elizondo flew down, spent 2 days with me, filmed my story, and wanted to see the helicopters. And of course, none of the helicopters came until we're coming out of the restaurant when, his cameraman's got all the stuff put away and we're getting ready to go with shaking hands and saying goodbye. And we're in a little restaurant right in downtown Garland, Texas on Old Main Street.
Yeah.
And here comes a helicopter, a big olive drab military helicopter of some make, about 400 feet over the ground, doing about 200 miles an hour, right up the middle of the road. I mean, right over our heads.
Yeah.
And Lou is just, I'm looking up, and Lou just looks over and says, I get it. I get it. Yeah. So he got to see one. So the cameraman was kind of ticked. He didn't have his camera with him, but they work it out that way somehow. But
if you ever want to get together and they ever decide to do a story on photos of black helicopters or odd helicopters, you take your 168, I'll take my 168 or 200. I stopped filming them. I
did too. I got bored.
I mean, it's like going, and I've got friends of mine who say, I'm hanging around you and a black helicopter comes over my house. So now I go out and put a sign out in the front yard, lay it flat on the ground. It says, "Bear's not here."
I got a good friend in Arlington when this started happening, and like 30 miles away. And I'm talking to him on the phone, and I said, "Man, I got these weird helicopters over my house." And he's like, "Oh, that's silly." And I'm like, "No, man. Yeah. I swear it really happened. This guy's a friend of mine." And we had the conversation. We hung up. He calls me back 2 days later and says, "We tell him to stop, knock it off." He said, "They're over my house now."
Yeah.
Swear to God. So you kind of had the same thing, haven't you? I mean,
oh yeah, I have the same thing. I mean, and people who associate with me, and Billy has got them coming over to his house.
Yeah.
And if you hang around for a while, or if I talk to you about these things, I guarantee you're gonna have an experience with black helicopters, because they're gonna come flying over your house. And it's amazing all the cases that we get involved with, and especially the heavy hitting abduction cases. Black helicopters all the time, black SUVs. I mean, I get there's a black SUV filming us as I'm filming them. All kinds of, and they're changing the colors of the vehicles now, white to any type.
We had a white van. My wife and I, we went to Houston to see the musical Hamilton, and Houston's about a 4-hour drive south, right? So we go down and had a good time, had dinner, come back home. We're on the highway headed back to Dallas, and this guy pulls in back of me in a white van. And I thought he's kind of close to the back end of my car. And I thought, well, did I cut this guy off and tick him off or something? And no, I don't think so. I never saw the guy before, and I mean, I'm pretty courteous driving, but you can tick somebody off by accident too. So the guy's following me, and I changed lanes, and he changes lanes, and I slowed down, and he slowed down. So I'm like, well, there's a Dairy Queen. That's a good excuse. So we got off the highway, and we pulled into Dairy Queen. They pulled into the gas station across the street, and they got blacked out windows. And we ate our ice cream, took our time, got back in the car, got back on the highway, and they followed us. And they followed us all the way to within about 4 miles of our house. And that was one occasion. The really weird occasion happened last summer. There was a silver Lexus. Now, we moved to a kind of a secluded little suburban neighborhood. Mm-hmm. There's no through area through it, so there's no traffic cutting through here. And there's a silver Lexus parked across the street from us, and the house across the street is empty. It was sold. It was up for sale.
Yeah.
My wife says, who's that silver Lexus belong to? Because, kind of know everybody in the neighborhood, and, if somebody has company, but this thing is there for a couple of days. And I start keeping my eye on it, and it'll come like 7 a.m. in the morning, leave around noon, be gone for an hour, then come back and sit there all afternoon, and then leave about 6 o'clock, and then come back for another couple of hours.
Right.
And it's got blacked out windows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, maybe it's somebody in the neighborhood. So about day 6 of this, I'm tired of it. So we live in Texas. I put my gun in my back pocket and my camera in my hand, and I go out and I walk over to this thing, and the windows rolled up. So I walked over to the driver's side window, and I tapped on the window real hard. And guy rolls it down about that much. And I bend over and I look in. There's 2 guys in blue business suits. And I said, hey, what are you guys doing checking out my house? And whoop, window goes up, and they drove away. So I'm taking pictures as they go. I got a picture of the car. So I got their license plate number. So I called my friend up in law enforcement. And I said, who's this belong to? And he said, well, give me 10 minutes. Belongs to Avis Rental Car out of Dallas, Fort Worth.
Yeah.
And I said, that doesn't swing true to me, because I don't think Avis is going to run a car with blacked out windows.
Right.
Liability issue. So
yes.
I got a hold of someone at Avis, and I said, a problem with one of your rental cars. Here's the plate number. It's a silver Lexus, and it's parked in front of my house. And I got a problem with that. And the guy kind of gives me a hard time, but I give him a hard time back. And he finally comes back and says, you know what, sir? He says, we don't rent cars with tinted windows. And he says, that plate belongs to a Ford Focus.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff.
You think it's just intimidation?
Well, that was nice. There we are. We're back again.
Yeah, we kind of froze up, didn't we?
Yeah, as we always are when we talk about these subjects, we have technical difficulties. So forth the cup. Bear with us.
Bear with us. Yes.
Bear with me again. Thank you, Frankie Lynn. This is a wonderful gift.
It's classy. I like it.
Yeah, it is. But you're right. Whenever we talk about this stuff, we've been knocked off of air. We've had all kinds of different things that happen to us. As I'm going through some of the stuff, I've seen some other people that have had some experiences. And if you want to tell Terry about your experiences or anything else, he does accept those. And near the end of the show here, as we're winding down, we'll have him give you the emails and everything else because he'd like to hear about that. We've had, just looking at some of the questions, it says like, was that camping site big enough for that triangle to be able to land? And
I think it would just fit.
Right. Just a perfect fit. So other ones said, have you had any other experiences after? Did you have any other experiences after that?
Yes. And I'll make this quick. I sleep with a shielded iPhone. I don't like EMF near my heart, so I have special case shields the EMF. But I've been sleeping with headphones, listening to either music or meditative apps since the 80s. Because I can't, from PTSD, I can't take the noises in the middle of the night. I mean, I'll get up and turn all the lights on and maybe not get back to sleep. So every night, since the 80s, I sleep. Yeah. Like right now, I sleep with my iPhone in a pocket of a T-shirt with my earbuds on, and I listen to meditative apps.
Right.
And on April 16th, 2019, I woke up at 5:55 a.m. I woke up out of breath. Severely out of breath and sweating. And sat up in the bed, and I thought, my God, I didn't have any chest pain. I thought, I'm having a heart attack. So I told my wife, call 911. Something's really wrong with me.
Right.
I couldn't catch my breath. And so EMTs came, they took me to the hospital, and an hour later, everything is kind of back to baseline. And I mean, I've had enough heart attacks to know the drill, EKG, cardiac enzymes, and a chest x-ray, those three things, so they did all that, and everything came back negative. So they kicked me out of the hospital. And I went home, and I'm like, boy, I wish I knew what happened to me. And we had dinner that night, and as my usual routine, I went out for a little, half-mile walk after dinner. Mm-hmm. As I hit the street, I pulled up the health app on my iPhone. And if you look at, it's in my new book, I have a picture of the iPhone readout. Mm-hmm. It shows that I climbed 6 flights of stairs between 5:23 and 5:24 a.m. It's one red spike that goes up.
Wow.
To 60 feet. I mean, it's 10-foot increments on the y-axis going up, and then the x-axis goes from left to right with passage of time. And this all happened in a 1-minute period. I live in a 1-story room. My only step is my threshold.
Right.
And, at 5:23, 5:24 a.m., I was asleep next to my wife.
Yes.
So I took my phone to Apple and I said, something's wrong with my phone or my app. And there is nothing wrong with my phone or my app. And I said, well, can you tell me what that means? And she says, it means that this phone was 60 feet over your house on April 16, 2019 at 5:23 a.m.
Yeah.
So something.
Something happened. Yeah. And it's funny. And people don't, if we sat down and told people of stuff. I mean, it's just weird. I mean, the strange dream feelings, the things, and you mentioned PSD. Look, everybody that has these things suffer from PSD.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can just guarantee it because you don't forget it. It's embedded in you, and they are nightmares. I have I hate it when I wake up and there's blood on my
pillowcase,
yeah, or something like that, or even in the bed. I had one that I had I was doing a conference, it was a MUFON meeting, and I had several people from other areas coming in to do a talk, and I woke up that morning and I had a weird thing in my belly button that came up, and it like came straight up in a curve like that, and it was like a slice. And I went, wow, geez. And it wasn't, I took a shower and a whole lot of hours, and I noticed it after the shower, actually, because I'm standing there going, whoa, what is that?
Yeah.
This red mark. And it hurt real deep into my stomach. You know, I was like, well, that doesn't feel like a scratch or anything. And I went through the day, and I was like going, oh, that doesn't feel good. Oh, that doesn't feel good. And I didn't say anything at the conference, and we did the end of the conference. And on the way back home, I said, wow, I don't feel that anymore. I got home and lifted my shirt up, and there was nothing there at all. Totally gone. But man, it hurt so deep down in my stomach. I don't know. It just felt like I'd been cut from one end to the other. And, but it was like, this is how I would describe it. And it's like there was a device that went over me. Okay. And here I am on this bed or whatever. And this device went down and in. And then as it was coming back up, they moved me this way, and as they were moving me, it made that mark coming out. And bears got to lose more weight if they're going to do that more often. But yeah, we've had some weird experiences. I know you have also, and it's
you know, my wife is upset. I've ruined probably 50 pillowcases. You know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
I wake up with one spot of blood, you know, the size of a quarter, right in back of where my head would be.
Right. Back of your head, ear, weirdest spots. You know, it's very, very weird.
Yeah.
And yeah, you don't like. I don't. You know, and it never stops. I mean, it never stops. I think now I don't remember like I used to remember. But I do know I wake up and I go, ooh, I know what that is. You know, and I look at myself and I go, whoa, I got that. Or, oh, I got this. Did you ever have any of those odd, do you ever had the odd rash?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've got pictures here I was going to send you. It looks like a crack of needle marks.
Yes, exactly.
Puncture wounds that run all the way up.
Yeah.
You know, the blood on a pillowcase just baffles me. I've never had blood in my nose or my ears, or my mouth or anywhere. And I took a pillowcase. I was working a case. As a matter of fact, I was trying a murder case, and I had retained a blood spatter expert, and I took by happenstance, I woke up that morning and I had blood on the back of my pillow. And none in my hair, none anywhere. And I took the pillowcase to this guy.
Yeah.
And I said, hey, Doc, let me ask you a question. I said, this has nothing to do with this case, but will you look at this and tell me what it is and what you see or what your impression is?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to tell you anymore. He said, sure. So I put it out on the table, and there was a spot there about the size of a dime. And he says, that looks like a single droplet of blood, but a large droplet of blood, dropped from about 12 to 18 inches.
Mm.
Now, how does that happen if my head's in the way?
Yeah. Going up, going down. Yeah, very, very, very strange. Some people wanted to know if you would already had taken out. You haven't had it taken out. One of the scary things about it, and I'll let Carrie answer this, but I've had opportunities I have things in me also. And at one point, I had thought about doing it. And the other person that lives here in the house with me basically said, no way, you've been through enough, and you're not going to go through that, because that's a whole different scene. And it's funny you mentioned about the car too. I want to tell you about that, because one of the things that I used to live on a dead end road off of a dead end street, and on a dead end, you went in dead end, and I was off to the left on a dead end road. And I got more traffic down there than you can imagine. The wife used to, she'd come out, and I'd be somewhere in the house, and she'd come out and goes, "What have you done now? There's one of those cars sitting out there with a guy."
Yeah, dead end street.
At a dead end street. And one night I was supposed to meet one of my friends there, and he says, he's ahead of me, and he called me on the phone, and he says, it's really strange. I'm going to your house, and there are 6 FEMA vehicles leaving your street right now as I'm coming down your road. And I'm like going, I'm going to be there in just a few minutes. And he says, who has 6 FEMA things on a street? I'm like going, well,
I mean, somebody schedule a tornado and not tell you?
Right, exactly. Yeah, right over my house.
That's crazy. Federal agencies,
we've had so many weird things. I'm looking through for a few more questions here. Billy, did you see any of them? A question: has any of your family experienced strange things because of what has happened to you, Terry?
Yes. I had strange things happen to me when I was a kid, and I had 2 older sisters, and they would never talk about it. I would never talk about it. And when I published this book in 2018, my sister, she's since passed, but she was 76 years old when I wrote the book in 2018, and I went to talk to her about it. And I gave her a copy of the book, and I said, look, this goes back to remember when I was like 5, 6, 7?
Yeah.
And she said, I don't want to talk about it. And I said, well, I'll leave you the book. You can read it if you want. If you don't want to, that's okay too.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, I'd really rather not talk about it. And I said, it's okay. You don't have to. And she said, but I do want to say one thing, and that is that I am sorry that we couldn't have been of more help to you whenever the lights had come through the windows at night and you weren't in your bed.
Whew.
And I said,
that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah, gave me goosebumps too.
Yeah.
But evidently, they couldn't find me in the house a couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, and my wife has had one experience. What's crazy is I'll be somewhere. We were coming out of her optometrist office 2 years ago, and we're walking in a parking lot, and I look up, and here's this silver disc in the sky, and I saw it because this woman in the parking lot is like this,
Yeah.
So I look up and I see it, and I'm like, holy, look at that, And my wife said, I don't see anything. What?
Mm-hmm.
Can you not see that? I don't see anything.
Yep.
And so then, it darts off and it's gone. And the lady turns around and says, did you see that? And I said, yeah, I did. She did, but we did.
Right. Yeah.
How's that work?
Yeah. Well, it's really funny because the same thing happens in the paranormal, but I've had that experience before where you may be with 1 or 2 people, 2 people see it, 1 don't. And you're looking at the same thing, or it may be 6 and 3 do. but it's something about those people were supposed to see it. That's what that's what I believe. It's just them going, hi, we're still here, wanted to see it. And I would take people out and everything else. And I had a guy come to my house one time. And he says, I want to see one of these UFOs. And I said, well, come on outside. And I'm out there. And I says, they come out. I get to see him quite a lot. And he's out there and I'm walking my dog. And it's nighttime. And he looks up and he goes, what in the is that? And I says, what? He says, that thing moving across that. I says, what do you think it is? And Jesse said, it's got to be up. And it just disappeared right out of the sky. And he went, well, I go, bye. You know, and it's funny, even people that hang around us and see it and everything else do have the same opportunity to see it. But it is also odd, and it's documented that other people can be looking the same direction you are. You could be pointing it right out, and you'll be saying, I can't believe you can't see that. It's right there. Same thing with ghosts. Same thing with disembodied voices. Some people hear them, some people don't. And even you could have 5 recorders sitting out, and only 2 or 3 recorders may pick up a voice, which is very strange. You know, if everybody's sitting there hearing it, we've got all these people. How come it doesn't even appear on a recorder? So it's a very, and there's a lot of study that we need to do to it, and there's a lot of things that we all need to get together and all sit back and hammer it. That one of the questions that I did see, Terry, also was that they were talking about did Toby ever have find an object, or did you ever? I mean, do you know by any chance if Toby has an implant on him in any way?
No. What happened was, and you're familiar with Robert Hastings, who wrote UFOs and Nukes, I'm sure.
Yes, I sure do. Yes.
Robert and I are good friends, and we talk about them. And he read my book. And in my book, I explained how when we got back to base, the first thing that they did was separate the 2 of us. Base commander, hospital commander, 2 guys in civilian clothes I did not recognize, came into the hospital because we were hurt. We were burned. We had flash burns to our eyes, and we were acutely dehydrated from being in this thing. And the hospital commander said, spoke very formally and said, Sergeant Lovelace should have no contact with Sergeant Tobias in any way, shape, or form. He says that means not verbally, not by telephone. You're not to communicate with him in writing. You're not to communicate with him through any third parties. You're not to give him anything. He's not to give you anything. If you run into him at the base exchange, you're to immediately turn around and walk in the opposite direction, and on and on and on and on. And he said, and that's an order, Sergeant. And if you disobey that order, there'll be consequences. Do you understand me? And I said, yes, sir, I understand. Because I understood consequences as far as
right, exactly. Yeah.
You know, as far as the reasoning for it, no, it didn't make any sense at all. But I got to tell you something. I don't understand it, but and I can't reconcile it to this day. But when I say we were changed, something changed between us. I mean, here this guy was probably my best friend in the world. And on the way back, I realized I really didn't want anything to do with the guy, and I can't reconcile that. And you know what I found out from these 1,500 letters I've received from people is that's not uncommon. You know?
It is not uncommon. It is not uncommon. You change, and you're on a different path, and sometimes the other people that had that experience never get contacted again, never get anything else, because maybe they don't have what they're looking for. I've got a question for you. I've never asked it to you before.
Yeah.
Multi-generational always comes up. You ever hear, they had the odd grandma or the weird great uncle that talked about little green men?
You know, I had my dad was extremely interested in UFOs.
Mm.
But it was always there's nothing to this. This is all Russians. Russians have manufactured all of this. This is all from the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But man, if there was a report of a UFO, he would be sure and like, shh, I want to hear this, turn the TV up. But he was pretty quick to follow it up with a disclaimer. There's nothing to that. That's just the Russians sending stuff over.
Yeah. But he wanted to hear it though, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. Terry, you know what? I enjoy having you. Thank you. We're running up on 2 hours now. And it's always a pleasure to have you, and we could talk forever and ever. I'm going to quickly show up the book again. I'm going to show the new one first, if you'd like to speak about it and tell people where you can get it. We'll go ahead and do that. Devil's Den, The Reckoning.
Devil's Den, The Reckoning. This is the second book that I wrote. This has a summation in it. There's like 30 short stories in the back that are from people that have had most incredible experiences, more incredible experiences than I had. And then some of the unanswered questions from the first book. The first book is Incident at Devil's Den, and it has a blue cover, pretty much the same picture. And both are available on Amazon. Devil's Den is available as a Kindle. It's available in a paperback with photographs and drawings in the back, and it's also available in an audiobook that I did in my own voice.
Excellent.
And then The Reckoning is only available right now in Kindle and in paperback, but I'm working on an audio version. I'm hoping to have that done soon.
There you go. That's awesome. Awesome.
And,
you know what? We both like audio stuff, and we both do this. The meditation music or anything else to relax you or do that kind of stuff. And we don't sleep very often. I don't.
4 hours.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need. 4 hours a day. That's what I tell everybody. You need 4 hours. And but great pleasure. Hey, tell people about your radio show too. I've got to bark on. You just started on this. What night can they catch it? Where do they see it at? All the good stuff. It's called, I believe it's called Devil's Den Radio.
It is. It's going to be, actually, we think we settled on Devil's Den Podcast because it's not really a broadcast. So it's Devil's Den Podcast. We have our first pilot posted on YouTube, which was Les Velez from OPUS.
Yeah, great guy, and
lives in Dallas.
I saw it. It was excellent. Erwin Montgomery is your hostess, or is with you. You both hosted, and just great stuff.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we just finished episode number 2, and we'll have 3 and 4 in the bag here in a couple of weeks. So
fantastic.
I'd ask everyone, if you can, just check it out and give it a like. I'd appreciate it. It really helps us out.
Yeah. And please go to the your website. Go ahead and give them your website so they can see some of these pictures and some of the things that you have up there.
Yes.
Because it's well documented.
TerryLovelace.com is my website. And I'm on Facebook under Incident at Devil's Den. And I post all my appearances there and places where I'm going to speak, like tonight. And thank you for the banner. I thought that was absolutely gorgeous. Nice job.
You're welcome. Yeah. And we hope to have you back another time. Well, we can always speak forever on this stuff. You're just a great guy. I didn't even get to go into a little bit about OPUS, but next time we get together, or maybe we can talk about OPUS and what OPUS does.
Yeah, we'll do that next time.
Yeah. All right.
Great.
And thank you, my friend. It's been a wonderful time. I'll let you go. I hope the chat room enjoyed it. And we thank you so much, Terry. Have a great night, and we'll be in touch again. Thanks, buddy.
I will.
Terry.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
And that was Terry Lovelace. And golly, guys, I hope you enjoyed him. I just enjoyed him to death. It was a great pleasure to have him on. Quite a story. It's first camping trip. I don't think he goes camping very much anymore. But yes, Terry is just a wonderful guy. We've got End of the Far coming up next week, and I'm going to let Billy handle all that fun stuff.
Yeah, next week I think we have Richard Rulin and Katie Turner.
Yes, we do, and that's going to be an exciting show too. So we'll have Richard and Katie both here with us, and it will be a fun time. We've got some. We're going to have. We'll be doing a show with Patrick Jackson, and as we mentioned tonight, also Steve Colburn, and it's going to be a roundtable event, and we're going to have a great time with that. Some stars to from Bigfoot shows that you watched and everything else, and we'll fill you in more on that. Also, at the end of the month, we've got Angel Lee is going to be on, and we also have the wonderful Third Realm Paranormal is going to be here on the 30th, and we're going to be talking about all ghosts and everything that they're up to also. So keep tuned in. We thank you so much for all your support. God bless. I hope you guys have a great night, and keep going into the far. Ciao.